Do you think, with what you listed out, with these big functions being written into statute, meaning that it would take an act of Congress to change things about, do you think this is, are you saying you think this is more scare tactic and threat, or do you think that this effort that's being led by Elon Musk and DOGE will actually impact the Department of Education?
It will totally impact the Department of Education, but more than the Department of Education, it will impact individuals. Think about, both in terms of Treasury and in terms of education, the amount of personal, private, financial information that that department has, just like Treasury has all the information of Social Security, all the information of taxes. In the Department of Education, it has so much personal information for people. So the question is, why is an unelected person who is taking this information, private information, from people who have trusted the Department of Education to give them their financial information? That, to me, is the scariest thing. Nobody elected Donald Trump or Elon Musk to take their private information.
They're in an absolute panic in D.C. Now one of their sacred cows is about to be eliminated. Word has gotten out that President Trump, as we speak, is preparing an executive order completely dismantling the ultra-left-wing Department of Education. The Department of Education was founded as an executive order, and it's about to die as an executive order, right? Jimmy Carter created the department to buy off the teachers' unions from supporting his Democrat primary opponent, Ted Kennedy. It was created by an executive order, and it appears that it will meet its demise by an executive order. It's being reported that a number of Department of Education officials have been put on leave, which, of course, is precisely what preceded the demise of USAID. The executive order is reportedly planning on dismantling the department by delegating the department's powers to other agencies and state governments, so it would, in effect, return the power and prerogative of education largely to individual states. Now, this could not possibly come soon enough as far as I am concerned. As many of you know, I was in academia for 20 years. And the Department of Education is the single most far-left lunatic department on the planet. Take all the federal departments you want, add them all up, and they still wouldn't come close to matching the left-wing lunacy that comes out of the education department each and every single day. It's long been a playground for every woke initiative you can imagine, and of course at the expense of your tax dollars. For example, Fox is reporting the Department of Education doled out over $200 million. Just pause on that for a second. $200 million for DEI initiatives on the campuses of universities across the country. Now, keep in mind, it's not just the absurdity of DEI. That would be bad enough. It's the sending of hundreds of millions of dollars, and again, every year, to university campuses whose faculties overwhelmingly contribute to Democrat politicians. We're talking plus 90% of their faculties contribute to the coffers of Democrats. Are you starting to realize how your federal government has been functioning of late? Do you recognize the depth of the depravity of this kind of money laundering that's been happening? Your tax dollars, to the tunes of tens of billions of dollars, are sent to federal departments who then dole that money out to left-wing special interests, who in turn send money back to Democrat politicians. You see how it works? And no department has done that more egregiously than the Department of Education. It is a money laundering front when all is said and done, and that is what these left-wing lunatics over at CNN are so freaked out over. It's not about Elon having access to your personal information that's keeping them up at night. That's not why they're livid. They don't care. They don't care. They'd sell you down a river. They don't care. It's Elon having access to their private information. That's what they're freaked out over. It's DOGE having the same access to the federal government's inner workings that Elon originally uncovered with the Twitter files when he took over that social media platform. That is what they are freaked out over. It's the same kind of hypocrisy that we saw with the RFK confirmation hearings when he confronted Bernie Sanders as one of the biggest recipients of lobbying money from Big Pharma. The pharmaceutical industry is the industry that spends the most on lobbying, with a whopping $400 million annually. But why? Well, so they keep patenting and monopolizing natural remedies and make millions of extracts that should be readily available to everyone for reasonable prices. And RFK threatens that status quo. For example, let's not forget about the FDA, who's attempting to change the status of NMN supplements to be classified as a drug, which would allow pharmaceutical companies to control it. But thanks to fighters like Trump, RFK, and Black Forest Supplements, they're not going to be able to turn NMN into the first anti-aging prescription drug in the world. Gang, I've been using NMN for years now, and it's been proven to reduce weight, lower cholesterol, and blood pressure. It's been dubbed the limitless pill and definitely shouldn't be in the hands of the FDA and big pharma companies. This is why I love supporting Black Forest Supplements and always ask them to give my followers a special discount so they can get their hands on NMN and back a company that stands with my values and fights against government tyranny. They agreed to an amazing buy two, get one free 48-hour promo. This stuff isn't cheap, so it's a great opportunity to stock up, and I wanted my followers to have a chance to get their hands on NMN. I take it every day, and I love it. We need to continue supporting Black Forest Supplements because they're ready to fight for this. Click on that link below and take advantage of their buy two, get one free for a limited time. Click on that link below right now. Now, besides the Department of Education being a front for basically money laundering to Democrat special interests, that's bad enough. But it's actually even worse than that. No single department has done more to destroy education in our nation than the Department of Education. And I think no single book better diagnoses that destruction than C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man. It was actually published in the 1940s, 30 years before the Department of Education was founded, but he diagnosed profoundly the futilities inherent in the very modern education that the Department of Education exacerbated during its disastrous tenure. Lewis, in effect, recognized that modern education replaced academics with activism. That's the key to understanding the kind of education pushed by the Department of Education. They want to replace academics with activism. You see, classical education, historic education, what we know as the liberal arts, not liberal in the political sense, but liberal in terms of freeing the mind and soul to be truly human. Classical academics centered on answering a fundamental question. How do I conform my soul to what is true, good, and beautiful? So classical academics is rooted in a world that was filled with divine meaning and purpose, and thus the central question for every student was, how do I conform my soul to align harmoniously with what's eternally true, good, and beautiful all around me? And the answer was by cultivating wisdom and virtue. And you did that by reading the great books, by learning Latin and Greek, by encountering the great ideas throughout history, learning about great music and art and architecture, the great achievements of great men throughout history. This was the education of every single one of our founding fathers. It was a thoroughly classical education rooted in Latin and Greek and the great books. But as C.S. Lewis points out, modern education actually inverted all of that. It flipped it on its head. Modern education doesn't ask, how do I conform my soul to the divine meaning and purpose all around me? No, instead, modern education asks, how do I conform the world to my own desires and ambitions? Because that's fundamentally what the modern world has been. Since the Enlightenment, the age of science and reason, the world was reduced to meaningless nature. It exists solely to be conformed to my own wants and desires. And I conform the world to my own desires by tapping into the mechanisms of manipulation, most particularly the secular state. And so students are not just taught to be radical skeptics towards anything that's eternally true, good, and beautiful. They're taught to be activists. They're taught to destroy and mock and ridicule all that came before them. They're taught to hate their country, hate their history, hate their American heritage, and celebrate everything cultural, Marxist, and woke. That is the kind of education that's promoted and perpetuated daily by the Department of Education. And so for me, as a former educator, I could not think of anything more wonderful than to finally and decisively see this department's demise. I want to personally invite you to an incredible live event that you won't want to miss, the America's Golden Age Summit. Mark your calendars for February 27th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's all online. We're going to explore how America is entering a new golden age filled with opportunities to thrive like never before. Now, during this powerful 90-minute event, my special guests and I will reveal some secrets for how you and your family can prosper like never before in this exciting new era. From financial strategies to building a legacy rooted in freedom and faith, this summit is designed to help you succeed. Spaces are limited, so don't wait. Register now and secure your spot today. Can't wait to see you there.